So generally, when you're posting something, you have two different accounts. From a bookkeeping perspective, you could call them debit and credit, but from a sales perspective, you could call them, for example, customer item, or in purchases, vendor item, and so on. So now if we look at default dimensions, it's possible that both accounts have different default dimensions. Suppose that I've assigned a salesperson to my customer, but that items also have a responsible salesperson. And suppose now that I'm selling an item that has a different default salesperson dimension than my customer. The question is then, what is the system going to use? Will the system stick with the salesperson that is assigned to the customer, or do we use the salesperson that is assigned to the item? Well, that's something that we can specify with the default dimension priorities. So what is important is that if we don't use the default dimension priority setting that I will show you in a moment, then the basic rule will apply. And the basic rule is very simple. The default dimension of the last entered account will take priority. You can also have a conflict between the default dimension value, which is set up in the specific account, or the account table, and then it's the one of the specific account that will be used. But if you use dimension priorities, then the rule is that the dimension value of the account that has the highest priority will be used. Now let me try to demonstrate this in the application so that you can understand what this setting does. So let's have a look at our customer, so training dimension, and remember, if I go to the dimensions, single for example, we already have assigned salesperson JR to this customer. So John Roberts is the salesperson of my new customer. Now what I will do is I will assign a conflicting salesperson value to an item. So for example, the Antwerp conference table. So I will go to actions and also go to dimensions single for the item. In this case, the item doesn't already have any default dimensions, so I will assign salesperson, and of course in this case not John Roberts, but let's take Linda Morton, so a different salesperson. So, and also in this case, let's use code mandatory. Let's now sell the item to the customer and see what happens. So I will go to sales orders. I will click on new to create a new sales order. So the customer in this case is of course my training dimension customer. And let's already have a look at the dimensions, and of course, nothing spectacular, but if I go to dimensions and if we focus on salesperson, you can see of course that John Roberts is the salesperson. And let's now sell the item. So I will enter the item 9020S, so the one that we have set up. There we go. And let's now have a look at the dimensions on the line. So if I now go to line related information dimensions, you see now that the system didn't switch to Linda Morton, although Linda Morton is the salesperson assigned to the item. So it stuck with John Roberts. So it didn't apply the basic rule of the last entered account, but in this case it has used the setting of dimension priorities. Now let me show you the setting. So I will go to dimensions, and here you can see the default dimension priorities. Now this is based on source codes, and I already retrieved the source code sales, and there you can see that our demo company already applied dimension priorities between customer and the item table. So customer, as you can see, has priority 1, item only has priority 2. And the result you could just see in my example. So because the item has a lower priority as the customer, it used the salesperson, so the default dimension of the customer, and not the one of the item. You see, so the result was very clear in my example. It stuck with John Roberts, and it didn't switch to Linda Morton on the line, which still is the default salesperson for the item. You see, so that's what we can do with the default dimension priorities. So we can give priority to the default dimensions assigned to a specific account as opposed to other accounts.